It is 4 p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories we're watching this Thursday, July 31. The Social Security System has announced a 3-year pension increase beginning September 2025. The SSS says pensions will rise by up to 33% by 2027 for retirement or disability pensioners and 16% for death or survivor pensioners. The agency adds that the hike will not require higher contributions and will benefit 3.8 million pensioners.
The PNP says 2 individuals considered missing links in the case of the missing Sabongeros are now under police custody. The 2 are brothers of self-proclaimed whistleblower Julie alias Totoy Patidongan, who earlier claimed knowledge of the abductions. Authorities believe that the 2 may hold critical information to resolve the high-profile case.
President Bongbong Marcos has appointed Lieutenant General Antonio Navarrete as the new commanding general of the Philippine Army. Navarrete previously served as commander of the Western Mindanao Command. The Department of National Defense expresses full confidence in his ability to lead with honor and professionalism.
And President Marcos is set to visit India on August 4th, the first state visit of a Philippine president there in nearly 20 years. He will hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and meet other Indian officials and business leaders. Malacanang says the trip aims to strengthen ties, including defense and trade relations. Former President Rodrigo Duterte wants his former spokesperson Harry Roque to stop interfering in his ICC case. That is according to Duterte's lead counsel, attorney Nicholas Kaufman. Kaufman also said that Roque tried to sue the Dutch government in a, quote, crazy scheme that nearly compromised their defense. He added that Duterte wants Roque to return to the Philippines to handle his own legal issues. For his part, the former Duterte official denied meddling in the case, saying that he only wanted to join the legal team but backed out due to personal matters.
Hindi naman talaga totoo na ako'y naghihimasok. I adhere to the strictest ethical standards. At alam ko na isa sa pangunahing talagang rule of ethics ay huwag maghihimasok sa kaso ng iba.
And joining us today, ba't naghagigan kayong dalawa?
Mataas din yung aking ethical standard.
He also abides by the strictest ethical standards.
Ikaw siguro bumulong kay Kaufman, no? Joining us today, Storycon's resident political heckler, Raul Llamas.
Nag-heckle na, hindi po ini-introduce eh, no?
Ano, ikaw bumulong, no?
Hindi, muntik na ako mahulog ng silya dahil kumakalog yung silya mo eh. Ayos nyo nga to, sila nyo. Baka isipin nila, nagkaya ako doon sa sinabi.
So, kung hindi ka pirereklamo silya, talagang wala kayong
Talaga yung silya nyo, nakaka-imbalance.
That's an interesting twist, ha?
Very interesting twist.
Yeah.
I mean,
What do
all
we
this
make of
time,
it?
all the time that he's been talking about the case and and going rara rasis bumba, biglang he was shut down.
And if Kaufman is to be believed, Roque also tried to sue the Dutch government over the, I think, on the basis of illegal detention yata.
Tapos humihingi siya ng asylum.
Oh, at the same time, humingi siya ng asylum. I mean, two different things. Two different agencies that's running it, but yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know if it's just part of the strategy, pero
I can't imagine the strategy.
Basta next time, huwag niyo ako gugulatin. Sabihin niyo na sa akin kung may parating na gano'n. Nagugulat ako.
Nasya ka ba?
Bigla ko na ako gano'n.
Muntik na siya mahulog. Okay.
Sige na. Let's settle down. Babe.
We're also talking about, by the way, there's another piece of news, which is Speaker Martin Romualdez filed House Resolution 94 seeking to open the budget deliberations. The BICAM budget deliberations to third-party observers. This was filed by him and his Tingog party list, which is of course led by his wife, Congresswoman Yeda Romualdez. Kasama na dito yung anak ni Speaker, who is Andrew Julian Romualdez as well, Congressman Andrew Romualdez. So he says we want a budget process that truly listens to the people And we want to ensure that civil society has representatives during the budget deliberations. So this is something that we've been asking for at least since President Marcos sat down. Even before, the civil society has been asking for open budget deliberations, but it looks like there's real momentum now. Mukhang matutupad na finally. This is separate pala from the resolution that the minority leaders in the House have filed yesterday. This one was filed just today.
Well, let's see the implementation. Kasi even if they open the deliberations, what if it's the horse trading that happens in between the deliberations that also matters?
The devil is in the details. Ano ba yung detalye niyan? Dahil dati kasi may mga ganyan din in principle na ginawa, pero parang open-close lang yung nangyari. So dito sana ay sustain yung effort, tsaka talagang bibigyan yung mga third-party observers ng mga dokumento.
Yeah. You have to apply if you want to be an observer
Yes.
in the BICAM. Sabi nila you still have to apply. But
Nag-apply na ako.
nag-apply ka
Nag-apply
na. Once they see Ronald Llamas,
Kapag-
you strike out ka agad. But
Political heckler yan.
Your Honor! May nataas na kamay.
may question ka agad. Hindi pa nga nagsistart.
Hindi pa nag-start. May nataas na kamay.
Parang sa Muppet Show.
But I have to say one other promising development is yung chair ng House Appropriations Committee is Congresswoman Mika Swansing. So it's a woman for a change. A young woman at that, and someone who seems to know. I mean, she's got a master's in public policy. She's a stellar academic record. So someone who knows the ins and outs of the budgets. Where she will be tested is in the negotiations with the allies, with the other side, with the opposition. Yan na, nandiyan na yung her political savvy will be tested there. But at least it's someone who understands how the appropriation
Ikaw ba?
should
Ano bang
go.
masteral mo?
Business reporting. Paano ako napunta sa politics?
Sa maloob niya.
But I understand budgets too because
Did you see your face?
I understand budgets too.
Kaya tinanong ko.
Well, at least may masters ikaw. Saan masters mo? Saan masters mo?
Sa kalsada.
Sa recto. Wala ka doon sa masters
Ralph
ko.
Recto.
Oo. Wala ka sa masters ko.
Kahit anong
School
gusto,
of Hard Knocks.
Kahit anong gusto mo,
PhD
ipila pa
pa.
lang yung papel.
Ano gusto mong PhD? Oh.
PhD
Tatapatan
in
ko.
heckling. Meron bang PhD in public policy heckling?
Hindi ko nakadali yun. Kailangan ng utak doon.
Yeah. Okay, so so that's the other development today. Meron tayong bagong resolution for an open BICAM, which is something that we've been asking for a while. And remember, the budget this year is at a record high, 6.8 trillion pesos na po tayo.
Gano'n karami ang kwan doon sa flood control?
We will see. Sabi ni DPWH
300
Secretary,
billion yata ang nandun,
well,
Ganun?
when we spoke to him last week, sabi niya they're gonna ask for about roughly 150 billion, which is less than what they got this year. But remember, that's just flood control within DPWH. Meron pang flood control projects in the other
Iba.
buckets.
May MMDA yan.
Kanya-kanyang flood control
Yeah.
projects.
Tapos may LGU.
So we need to see
Yeah.
all of these line items.
And remember yung insertion nila for this year's budget, yung congressional insertions, although binito ng Pangulo ang 26 billion, that amounted to what? 95 flood control projects na binito, which took these are insertions that took DPWH daw by surprise, sabi ni Secretary. Parang,
Yes.
parang we didn't even design those projects, so we had no idea that they were coming in.
That happened in the BICAM as well.
BICAM yan, no?
They passed, the executive passed their NEP, tapos ni-reconcile, and then,
Tapos
House
sinaksak yung,
Insertion,
sinaksak
in-insert.
yung 95, tapos sinanggal naman lang kanya yung 95. Pero siyempre,
Kasama
may
ba
natira
dyan
pang
yung
iba.
142 billion allegedly insertions?
We don't know. We don't know. But yeah, these are the items that we need to parse kung matuloy nga itong open BICAM proposal, right? Okay, we need to pivot a little bit now and bring in our first guest. We are talking to Attorney Dan Gatmaytan, a constitutional law professor at the University of the Philippines. Good afternoon, Attorney. Thanks for joining us on Storycon.
Good afternoon, attorney.
Good afternoon, attorney.
Attorney, I'm sorry. Good afternoon sa lahat. I'm not used to
Meron ka din ba,
Ronald addressing me as attorney.
meron ka din ba, Prof, na kwan? Na high moral standards, ethical standards?
Strictest ethical standards.
Strictest ethical standards, katulad ni ex-human rights lawyer Harry Roque.
I think siya na yung highest.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
kasama ni Professor yan sa UP College of Law dati.
Hindi naman perfect si Professor.
Okay, ano po? You go, I go.
Okay, go.
Prof, ganito po. I'll toss you a question that Reg tossed Domingo Cayosa yesterday. Kasi now you have tapos you have pushback from legal luminaries including former Supreme Court justices, including the former Supreme Court Chief Justice dun sa Supreme Court impeachment decision. Ang question nga kahapon was in the end kasi you're looking at a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court, presumably the highest legal luminaries of the land. Parang mas understandable pa sana kung alam mo yung medyo makitid yung margin ng vote na 6 versus 7 ganun, pero ito completely 13-0 eh. And now we have a pushback from other luminaries. So parang we're trying to figure out how this happened eh. I mean, how do you explain that, di ba?
Prof, dati kasi, yung mga former Chief Justices, former Justices of the Supreme Court, medyo restrained sila na mag-criticize doon sa kanilang pinanggalingan. Ngayon, parang nasa frontline sila in terms of criticizing the Supreme Court. So, parang ang tanong siguro ni Ed, what's happening? At saan papunta ito?
Parang is it such such an astounding decision na they're weighing in bigla even their former colleagues and tapos unanimous pa yung vote?
Yes, I think so. No, I think it's proof, no, that the case has very, very serious consequences for our system of government, no, yung impeachment system, etc. So I agree. Na hindi lang merong comment ang former justices, former Chief Justice, institutional yung responses, for one, at saka medyo harsh. Di ba? Unlike before na medyo mayroong respect
Couching
out
very
of
diplomatic terms.
Pero lagi namang may kwan, may lagi namang respectfully.
Respectfully.
Oh, hindi katulad namin, hindi kami respectfully.
Kaya kayo na masa-cite for contempt.
Si Richard lang. Oh.
Pero sir,
yes, seryoso talaga to. Seryoso talaga to.
Opo, pero how could that have happened na na ito si unanimous hindi man lang yung very small margin na pinagdebatehan talaga. Nagkasundo talaga sila.
So how is it possible that we're basically asking those on the other side, those who are saying that it's the wrong decision, we're asking them, how is it possible that 13 Supreme Court judges could get it wrong?
Well, you get it wrong if in this case, some people are pointing out may mali sa facts. Mali doon sa pag-assess nila ng calendar ng Congress. So that alone could explain why they decided to form a majority, a unanimous one, as you put it. So, but if you point out the factual error dun sa kanilang decision, we don't know. Diba? They might actually say, it looks like we made a mistake. And it doesn't matter anymore kung unanimous yung decision or not. It looks like there's a reason to reconsider their decision.
Pero sir, hindi ba mas nakakatakot yun if 13 justices got their facts wrong?
Yes. But the fact, kung ganun talaga yung nangyari, di ba? Kasi yung ruling nila is based on yung facts. Mas masama pag mali yung kanilang legal interpretation, di ba? So parang may way out nga Even if sinasabi namin, pati ako sinasabi ko parang mali yung decision niyo on many counts. Pag i-focus mo sa facts, it might give them a way out or a reason to reverse ang kanilang decision. Hindi nila kasalanan. Nagkamali lang, it happens to everyone. Sabihin na natin ganun.
Pero Prof, in a universe of of infinite possibilities, may possibility ba na i-reverse nila yung kanilang sarili? O kahit,
There's-
kahit hindi na possibility.
Probabilities.
Is that probable na itong 13 i-reverse nila yung sarili nila? Kahit presuming na merong factual errors.
Okay, kung the probability very slim kasi ang consideration dito, I think pride, both institutional pride, yung
Hubris.
Supreme Court mo nagkamali, di ba? Or pati yung pride ng individual justices to be informed, to be told na one, your facts are wrong, two, your interpretation of the Constitution is wrong. So baka mag-dig in, no? Kasi kasi it might be costlier for them.
Dahil-
Wrong.
Ang alam ko kasi, Professor, even if the Supreme Court makes a mistake, their mistake becomes law. Their
Yes, that's
error
actually
becomes
true.
law.
Yun ba? Kaya i-criticize yan kahit mali sila, pero everyone knows in the end we have to follow the law. But kung yung factual basis ng decision yung mistake, they might want to take a second look at their ruling.
Prof, what about the Supreme Court decision bothered you the most? Because, for instance, we were talking about former Supreme Court justices speaking out, and who we're referring to is the Justice Adolf Escuna, who was also one of the framers of the Constitution, and he pointed to a few things that the underlying issues, conflict of interest, for instance, because they themselves are impeachable officials, accountability, the fact that in the 1987 Constitution, they deliberately made it easier to hold officials accountable, right, by lowering the ratio for the votes for the both houses of Congress, and then meron din issue around due process. Justice Escuna was saying that due process does not apply. There's no constitutional basis for enforcing due process throughout all the phases of impeachment. Out of all these things, what about it? What about the Supreme Court decision bothers you the most?
Dagdag lang sa tanong ni Reg, Prof. Sabi kasi, yung usually reticent Justice Escuna, ang sinabi niya, the Supreme Court decision didn't just amend the Constitution, it derailed the Constitution. Kanya na, very, very sharp yung kanyang banat, no? For a former Justice of the Supreme Court na usually ay subdued. No?
I think the commentators are almost in complete agreement. Like, for example, yung concept ng effective dismissal ng impeachment complaints na hindi naman na-initiate to begin with. Diba? Following yung earlier Supreme Court decisions sa Francisco, sa Gutierrez, hindi yan initiate and yet somehow na-dismiss. So that's unusual. Yung due process, I agree with Justice Escuna, ang daming layers na nilagay yung Supreme Court, none of which are actually can be found in the Constitution. Sabi silang, if you're impeaching a justice, it has to do with their independence daw. I don't know where that came from. Yeah? So, yung dalawang main issue na yon plus other things like yung insinuations nila na political yung agenda ng House. I don't know why you have to assume or saying that this is all about political vendetta wala namang basis for saying that. Diba? Hindi lang to, they didn't just change the Constitution. They said, do it the right way, don't do it for politics. Kung ako yung House, ilang beses na ako na-insulto ng Supreme Court eh. So, meron pa. Gusto nyo pa? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go on.
More.
More.
Sabi ni Justice Escuna na, okay, let's assume you change the rules. Sabihin natin, there's never been a case like this. There's never been a case like this before na hindi ni-refer yung impeachment complaint sa committee, di ba? Sa Justice Committee. Sabihin ng Supreme Court, well, so because this is the first time, we are making a new rule. Okay, fine. Pero pag new rule yan, then why apply it to a present case? Diba na gumugulong na? In other words, the House acted in good faith dahil sinusundan nila yung mga previous Supreme Court decisions. Sabi ng Supreme Court, new rule because new set of facts. And then apply it. Normally, they would apply it to the future cases.
Sir, I'm sure you remember yung in the last, no, 2 decades ago, there was one lawyer who was famous for being a serial filer of impeachment complaints to supposedly or apparently to immunize the incumbent from more serious impeachment complaints. So, with that in mind, I'm wondering lang, if this one stands, if the decision stands, and hindi na bago yan, o hindi na amend yan, what's the effect on future impeachment cases filings? Kailan bale, if you look at how it's written right now, kailan magsisimula ang one-year bar? Is it when somebody files an impeachment complaint and it's not acted upon?
Lalo na yung sinabi nila tungkol sa mga constitutional bodies. Talagang hinigpitan. No? So, will impeachment be possible in the future because of these changes, Prof? Medyo matindi yung pagbabago,
Baka nga dalawang rules ngayon, no? Sabihin nila pag I admit medyo confused din ako. But they might be implying or saying na hindi naman nila in-overturn yung Francisco eh. So in cases, 'di ba? So in cases where mayroong mga private citizens na nag-file tapos ni-refer sa committee, then na-initiate na 'yon.
Yes, sir.
They can actually say that's still the rule. Except that sabi nila, in cases naman, where nag-adjourn yung Congress without any action, that also triggers the one-year ban.
Yes,
so
sir.
hindi ko rin alam.
That's the portion where, and I'm quoting from the decision, I think this is the relevant portion. The one-year ban should be reckoned from the initiation of the impeachment complaint if unacted upon or when it is dismissed if it has been partially acted upon. So does that mean na, pwede mag-unahan na lang ng filing ng impeachment complaint? Kung hindi inaktuhan yung first impeachment complaint na na-file, yun na yung simula ng one-year bar.
Yes, that's a possibility. So, yung dating practice ng filing of the defective impeachment complaints, maaaring mangyari naman makita na naman natin yung search ng ganitong klaseng kaso.
Yung immunizing the incumbent.
Yes. Triggering the one-year ban, di ba? Yan. So, pwede mangyari yan.
Okay.
You said at the start, Prof, that you were worried that this might have serious consequences for the system of government. What kind of consequences are you talking about?
Kasi impeachment is part of checks and balances. No? It's a way of addressing abuses of power by certain government officials. Parang if all the commentaries are correct, then if the Supreme Court derailed the Constitution, as you said, if they had actually made it impossible to file impeachment cases in the future, then that's a serious consequence, no? Because we have removed one of the most effective ways dapat of making these officials accountable for their actions. Eh ngayon, hindi na alam ng mga tao kung magagawa nila, no? Just just addressing all the new requirements. And again, these requirements seem to have no constitutional anchor. Parang nakaka-discourage.
Tapos sir, I'm a bit confused kasi ang desisyon ng Senado magbubutuhan sila sa August 6 dito sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema. So kung ganun, I suppose the presumption is that the Senate is going to decide whether or not to obey the Supreme Court. Kasi hindi going to vote in it
But technically, hindi pa tapos yung case, di ba? Kasi magpa-file ng motion for reconsideration. So merong leeway, di ba? There's some space to suggest that the trial should proceed. Except that and they don't have the votes, I think. Hindi pa legal yung issue dyan Legally, can they do it? Yes, because the case has not been decided with finality. So pwede pa. But on the other hand, I'm not even sure they have enough votes to to begin the trial.
Yeah, there's also that.
That's the other thing. So what's the recourse for ordinary citizens now? Because if as you say, suddenly there's all these processes and rules around impeaching public officials, which of course is the highest penalty for a sitting official if they've abused their position. What can people do? What's the recourse at this point?
Well, the other remedies are being pursued. No? Kaya nga may motion for reconsideration. I think for many of those who want to intervene, it is right na unlikely na ma-reverse. It is for the record that we are objecting to the interpretation ng Supreme Court. Now, failing that, technically, there's always impeachment ng justices. Sorry. Kaya lang,
Maraming sara.
impeach mo yung let's say ma-impeach mo yung 13, you have to. You cannot just pick the ponente kasi hindi naman yan decision ni Justice Leonan
Yeah.
That is a decision of the entire court. Pag na-impeach mo sila, sinong magta-try sa kanila? Yung Senate. The Senate is so grateful for what the Supreme Court did.
Yeah.
Because they removed this burden of dismissing the case, di ba? From the Senate, and the Supreme Court did it for them. So, again, kahit na may legal remedy tayo, and the remedy is impeachment, it is unlikely that they will be removed or be found guilty by the Senate, assuming a trial is held. Magkakaroon pa yun ng complication kasi if you impeach the justices, tapos may constitutional question, sino magde-decide?
Pero di ba, pag kung sakaling ma-impeach, mag-a-appoint ang presidente ng mga bago?
No, because the impeachment, hindi pa siya na-remove.
Hindi. Kung halimbawa, theoretically, makonvict sila sa Senate, then the president can appoint a new set of justices.
Yes.
Pwede kasi yung impeachment can just be symbolic. Para lang ipakita sa Supreme Court na hindi kayo untouchable.
Kaya.
Exactly. Yung political statement, no? Pwedeng statement yan na we disagree with what you said to the point na impeach namin kayo. So legally that can be done.
Mas less of a constitutional crisis kasi yung impeachment kesa dun sa hindi mo susundin yung desisyon ng Supreme Court. Diba? Mas pupunta yun sa constitutional crisis eh. Sasabihin halimbawa ng Senate o ng House na hindi namin kayo susundin. Yun ang constitutional crisis. Pero kung halimbawa, as a political statement, i-impeach namin kayo. Ang audience namin, hindi naman ang Senate. Ang i-audience namin yung tao. Just to emphasize a point, yun, hindi pupunta sa constitutional crisis.
Hindi, because even if you carry out the impeachment process, that's the point. You followed the Constitution.
Yes.
Paano kung sabihin ng Supreme Court, you did not follow due process in your impeachment?
Ay, hindi mukhang ang objective.
Nagugulo lang ako.
Ang objective naman, hindi para matuloy eh.
What are your thoughts, Professor, on, rightly or wrongly, na politicized na issue, and a lot of people are pointing to the fact that at least nine of the justices were appointed by former President Duterte.
Nine ba?
At least 9. Hindi ko sure eh.
Alam ko
I
12
lost
eh.
track. Is it
12
12 now? 12 now, okay,
12.
12. So yeah, a lot of people are pointing to that and drawing the conclusion now, well, okay, they're Duterte appointees, therefore they would toe the line, right? Is that a fair assessment? What do you think?
I think we should avoid making those kinds of conclusions. It undermines yung objectivity ng Supreme Court. Parang what we're going to say is every time may issue against the Dutertes, they will win. Right? And that's just not the way the system works. And number two, it's so hard to prove it anyway.
Yeah.
Kahit totoo. Hindi, hypothetical
Matotrouble kami ba?
hypothetical lang.
Kayo.
No? Halimbawa, kung totoo man yun, paano mo papatunayan?
That's you, not us.
Paano mo papatunayan? Kahit totoo.
So, sir, let me ask you about the second part of the decision, which is yung question of due process that was raised by the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court is looking for example, a notice to the respondent, all the evidence to be given to the respondent as well, and the respondent to have the chance to answer the allegations. These were, if I recall correctly, these were never on the table in previous impeachment complaints. For example, yung impeachment ni Erap when Villar ran the impeachment complaint through the House plenary. Wala namang ganon. And it's also the House, according to the Constitution, that's given the authority to set the rules.
Yes, I agree. So, yun nga eh. The other criticism against the court is parang you're micromanaging the House. And that goes against what the provision you cited about how it is the House that has the sole authority to impeach officials. Eh ngayon, gusto nilang malaman kung nabasa niyo ba lahat yan or did every member of the House receive a copy. Di ba? Ginagawa lang kayo ng isang scenario why that's ridiculous. Kasi halimbawa, di ba pag nag-file yung member ng House, nakakuha siya ng 1/3, diretso na yan sa, di ba?
Yes,
sa Senate.
Constitutes the articles of impeachment na.
Tapos trial shall proceed forthwith, Mr. Chief. Di ba? Halimbawa, 2/3 nga yung nakuha nilang votes. Pwede mo bang inalify yung impeachment kasi sabihin nila, well, the 1/3 did not get a copy of the impeachment complaint? Diba? Let's say they did. Anong gagawin ng 1/3? I-veto nila yung 2/3? Walang sense eh. And it goes to, nabasa nyo ba yan? Mukhang hindi nyo nabasa. There wasn't enough time. And that's all wrong.
The last thing, Professor, that we were wondering about is the timing of it all. Did it strike you as unusual that the Supreme Court was issued a decision seemingly fast, at least for us, to us outsiders? It looked like it was came a little bit fast, and also it came, just before the president's SONA, and also on a week when it was storming. So the government work and classes were called off the entire week. Did anything about the timing of it all strike you as unusual?
Sabi nga ni Chief Justice Panganiban, Prof, parang ang bilis. Na-receive nila on the 19, on the 20, yung sagot ng House. Tapos isinulat yung 97 pages. Tapos dinistribute sa mga fellow justices, dineliberate at nagbotohan. Habang for 1 week ay canceled ang mga opisina. So parang nagtanong mismo yung former Chief Justice Panganiban, bakit ang bilis ng mga pangyayari? Sa inyong experience, sa ganitong mga landmark decision, ganyan ba talaga kabilis? Wala ba talagang kaunti man lang debate or pag-open sa public ng ganyang klaseng proseso?
Well, there's nothing in the Constitution that requires na i-open sa public. No? And there's also no requirement na wag masyadong mabilis. I'm just saying, in fact, I'm sure you know this, no? Sometimes it takes years for these really important constitutional questions to be resolved. Kasi gusto nila, they want to get it right, di ba? That's kaya may oral arguments many times, di ba? Sa isang kaso, it can have 5-6 days devoted to oral arguments. So, is it unusually fast? Yes. But I cannot, wala akong i-extrapolate, wala akong i-insinuate na it's just because mabilis yung pag-decide. Sabihin nila, pag mabagal kami, nagagalit kayo.
Yeah. But basically, you've been teaching constitutional law for a long time, and I guess you would know what the usual pace of the Supreme Court is when it comes to landmark decisions, right? So,
yeah, it's fast, really fast.
Pero
Ang nag-extrapolate si Ed.
Pero sir, on the other hand, the original petition was filed by Attorney Torion in mid-February, which in fact made us wonder na bakit ang tagal-tagal na hindi ginalaw ng Korte Suprema itong petition na final nung after kasi ng impeachment nagsampa na si Torion and Company.
Pero meron namang fourth read.
Pero nga, it took several months before the Supreme Court started moving on it and started and asking for documents and the information from both chambers eh. So ang tagal, although mabilis, parang apparently mabilis yung yung galaw magmula nung pumasok ang mga dokumento, pero ang tagal bago magsimula ang proseso.
Right, but we are assuming na wala silang discussion/deliberations na all the time since February. I mean, we don't know, but they might have been discussing it.
Yeah.
Tapos they just realized, no, we think we need more information from the House, and that's
Okay.
why they sent that directive asking the House to provide more information. Diba?
There, that's also true.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now. We've run out of time, but thank you so much for talking to us and shedding light on this big issue. That's Professor Dan
Thank you, Prof.
Gatmaytan, Constitutional Law Professor at UP. Salamat, sir.
Salamat, Prof.
Thanks, sir.
You are watching Storycon on One News. We just need to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We've got developing news and the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
And I'm Regina Lay. Still with us, Ronald Llamas, our resident political heckler.
Also joining us this afternoon is Octa Research President Professor Ranjit Rai. Sir, magandang hapon, Professor, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Salamat,
Hi, sir.
Professor. Agree ba kayo ron, Professor, na heckler ako?
Oo, okay naman mag-heckler pare. Talagang ano yan. Kailangan natin yan sa political discourse natin. May
Relax naman. That's such a nice way to put it, Professor.
Pinagpupula, alam mo yon. Pero bawal ang makontempt ha. Yung kaibigan natin, bawal. Kinasuhan for contempt.
Oo nga, kinakabahan na ako.
Contempt, which is an interesting discussion, you know.
Hindi, may magandang rallying point si Richard.
Yeah, I think so. Kasi you know, in a democracy, freedom of expression is supposed to be sacred. And alam mo yun,
Yeah.
I hope that the courts won't entertain.
Somebody has
Sabi nga, sir, magandang,
somebody has to take one for the team.
magandang test case yun kay Richard kung sakaling matuloy. Not that I'm proposing na matuloy, pero I mean, kasi di ba, Supreme Court, can the Supreme Court tell you not to criticize the Supreme Court decision?
Oh, dahil yung isa secretary protektado ng Malacanang 'yan. Yung isa congressman poprotektahan ng Congress. Si Richard, ako lang ang magpoprotekta sa kanya. Lalo siya lulubog nun.
Boss, sama mo na ako. Kasama tayo protekta. Kung matalo man, pwede naman tayo bumisita 6 months naman.
Akala ko naman, sasamahan niyo sa kulungan, yung pala dadalaw lang kayo.
Madadala kami sandwich.
Papadala niya ng
Okay.
papadala niya ng
Sige, magjo-joke.
Papadala
Hindi
niya ng
pwede for
survey.
TV. Ikaw talaga.
Okta, papadala niya ng survey.
Okay.
Oh,
Speaking of survey, we are talking to you today about the latest Octa Tugon ng Masa survey, so Tugon ng Masa is non-commissioned, of course. And the results are Marcos's trust ratings were at 64%, which is a 4-point increase from the last one. So it went from 60 to 64 this month. Yung performance rating naman, so a 3-point increase to 62%. So nasa 62% na po si President Marcos. Whereas for Vice President Sara Duterte, we're seeing a marginal decline. It fell to 54% from 58%. Yung trust ratings, while her performance rating dropped by 6 points to 50%. So she's at the halfway mid-level mark. To what do we attribute these changes, Professor?
Well, you know, that's the question of the day, no? Whether it's trust or performance. I think that in the case of the president, it may be clearer to argue that many of the government short-term, one could argue, populist initiatives kicked in from April to July. Not to mention the fact that when you look at the statistics, the everyday statistics, joblessness went down. And in April, both SWS and Octa saw a decline in self-rated poverty. So, you know, putting all of this together, it's possible that this may have driven the numbers of the president up, no? Lalo, given the fact that, you know, ayuda was so, widely distributed. When you look at ACAP, just before the elections, it was around 20% already distribution. And all the other ayudas, no, different forms, no, were distributed. Rice went down marginally in certain areas. So all of these put together, it's possible that this may have driven the improvement in the president's number for the second quarter. And I think we're not the only ones seeing it. Yung nga lang sa amin, hindi masyado dramatic. But when you look at the granular improvements, it's across the board, except for in Mindanao, and across age groups. Now, that's a complete contrast when you talk about VP Sara, who basically, continues to be the same political actor that she was in the first quarter. She's basically, when you talk about the cabinet, she's politically irrelevant there. Okay, she's been out. So we don't know really what caused her numbers to go down, except to say that the biggest news during that period was really the impeachment. And then when her numbers, you look at the numbers of Senator Chis Escudero, which, by the way, went down, when you look at the granular level, significantly in Balance Luzon and NCR, double digit. So these two individuals were the ones who lost ground in the second quarter. Their numbers went down. And I can only really think of, the political noise created by the impeachment. This was after June, after the case was remanded back, after all the protests. And remember, this July survey was done July 12 to 17, and this was before the Supreme Court decision, before the SONA, definitely.
Prof, bakit ang laki ng difference dun sa surveys in terms of approval ratings ng Presidente at other officials doon sa PULSE at saka SWS dito sa Okta? Pwedeng sabihin, ipaliwanag, to explain away na perhaps iba yung panahon, iba yung
I'll go back to
pero
that,
pero ang laki.
Talagang it's
Ang
really
laki,
a different
Prof,
period.
diba? Yung 25 to 35%, tapos ito ay 60-64%. Parang
Baka nasa sampling. I guess it's in a sample size.
A huge na difference. But when you look at Okta's numbers, it's apples and oranges to a great extent between survey companies now. But when you look at our numbers from last year to this year, they've been really within a band. They've been going up and down, and in the case of the president, he's been on a downward trend. Both the vice president and the president are on a downward trend when you look at the big picture, the long durée in French, the long period of study, since they started. It's really been a downward trend. But the vice president's reversal of trend happened in the first quarter, and now she's down again. And the president's reversal, upward improvement, just happened this quarter. So successively, he's been going down for the last 2-3 quarters. And this is the only time that his numbers actually improved marginally. But then again, when you look at the granular data, there's significant changes in Balance Luzon, in the National Capital Region, in Visayas. Distrust also went down in certain areas. But for the Vice President, distrust went up close to 10%. And this was in Balance Luzon and in the National Capital Region. I really can't explain because that's their survey. This is ours. Except to say that there are different periods, different spots where we do the survey, conduct the survey in. And this is what we're seeing.
Pero sabi niyo, Prof, apples and oranges Can you explain that more? Paano pag sinabing apples and oranges, magkakaiba siya Ano yung pagkakaiba rito? Bakit ganun kalaki yung agwat?
Yung period po, sa kanila June sila nag-take ng last survey nila, to my knowledge. Kami itong July 12 to 17. So kaya ito yung siguro major difference. Yung kung saan kami kumukuha siguro ng aming mga sentimiento, yung aming sentimiento, yung sentimiento na mga pinagkukuhaan namin interviewees, iba rin siguro kasi we're randomly choosing this all around the country. So this is possibly why there's a difference. But I'm more comfortable talking about my survey, Sec Ronald. I hope you don't mind, except to say that methodologically, there might be some differences in where we choose our interviews, when we do it, and the periods, the context when we take the surveys. Remember, there was a significant number of political events in the latter part of June, mid to latter part, with regards to the impeachment. There were significant protests all over the country, because of the implications of the Senate decision. we may have captured that in our own surveys.
Sir, what about Mindanao? Any significant movements in the numbers dun sa Mindanao, whether for BBM or for VP Sara?
Wala namang masyadong significant, no? Except that it's still strongly
Duterte country.
and performance ratings of VP Sara continue to be relatively higher than the president in those areas. Interesting here is really si Senator Chis Escudero kasi the first time to see a dip of this nature as far as these numbers are concerned. So all we can think of really as a major driver is really the issue with the impeachment.
Yeah.
Now, this squares off with our earlier survey, which we released last week, where 8 out of 10 Filipinos want the trial to continue. So, I think the data is fairly consistent as far as our Okta surveys are concerned. So, yeah, I guess that's it for us. No? We hope that the president can sustain this momentum moving forward, but it will require that the performance is sustained. And that would mean exactly what he said in the SONA. Programs, initiatives, projects are actually implemented quickly.
Speaking of the SONA, Prof, it was largely a very populist SONA. The president basically listed. So a lot of the analysts we've spoken to feel like they didn't get much by way of policy shift or direction. Pero he did list all of the achievements in terms of basic services, basic governmental services. He talked about expanding healthcare and education and agriculture. So it's a largely a populist SONA. How without asking you to try to forecast the numbers, how do you think that might influence his numbers moving forward? Ito na ba yung sinasabi nila that he's speaking directly to the larger electorate?
Yeah, I hope that he is able to actually keep to his promises, because what we heard in the SONA are largely promises. The existing programs already and the rollout of those programs will likely impact on his trust and performance levels in the third quarter when we measure it sometime in September. No? And the same for VP Duterte, no? Because of the impeachment. And now, her numbers went down, but now that the impeachment is over, we're thinking that this could be a positive thing for her. It might just have a positive impact on her trust and performance ratings. Because let's look at it, from one perspective. She hasn't been doing anything naman as significant as vice president. She's out of the country. But in the first quarter, her numbers really improved significantly, almost double digit. Now, in the second quarter, it went down, marginally to some extent. But what could be the possible driver of that decline? And we're saying that it's the impeachment. Now that it's done, it's over. It's possible, if our hypothesis is correct, that her numbers might actually improve in the third quarter if she becomes more actively involved in initiating her programs. We see the same thing for Senator Chis Escudero, because now that in a sense the political cost and risk has been borne by the Supreme Court with their final decision on the impeachment, that his numbers will also recover.
Prof, I caught that. You think the impeachment is over?
I don't know. Well, it seems like we don't know if the drama will continue, but I don't see it moving forward the way we envisioned it to move forward. There will be some settlement. My guess, I don't know. It's just my guess that there'll be some discussion about it in the plenary, but there'll be no convening of the impeachment court, as the Senate President has already articulated a few days ago.
Prof, may plano ba kayong gumawa ng survey in relation to that?
Actually, meron kaming probe. Meron na kaming probes on the impeachment and on ICC. Yung sa impeachment namin kasi it's embargoed, no? But what I'm saying here, what essentially I'm saying is a significant number of Filipinos feel that the Vice President is innocent, and that the impeachment court trial, I should say, would provide a venue clear her name, and that's why ang taas ng we were criticized by some of the critics no and pro Duterte columnists no na they can't understand bakit ang taas. Because a lot of people don't see the impeachment just as pananagutan or accountability. A lot of people also think of it as due process, a chance for the vice president to clear her name. And the assumption there, of course, is that a lot of them think that she's basically innocent, and this is a form of political harassment. So that's why the numbers are high, even in Mindanao. We were also surprised by it. We tweaked the question a little bit to conform to the suggestion of one of staunchest critics, no, from the who's perceived to be aligned with the Dutertes, a columnist. But we got an even higher number. In April to 78, now it's 80%. So, while the change is nominal, it shows that there is a consensus around the idea that she has to clear her name.
In relation...
And definitely, she won't be able to clear her name
without a trial.
Political cost also, if you look at the calculation, she'll only be able to clear her name in next year, in Feb.
In relation dito sa dismissal ng Supreme Court, meron ba kayong survey?
Meron kaming survey results, although we haven't released, for example, did the Senate take too long? Or should the Senate have started the impeachment hearings? Yes, the answer is yes. Majority say that the Senate should have started the Supreme Court hearings earlier. But we haven't released the formal report yet. And sense parang we're not seeing it as more important than the other survey reports that we're going to release tomorrow and the day after, which focus on the trust and approval ratings of both the House and the Senate, the trust and approval ratings of the armed forces and the police. So please expect that these reports will come out as soon as possible. And then our economic probes, no, trust and urgent national and personal concerns, hunger and poverty. See, what the important image is that in April we saw a significant change in what you call hunger and self-rated poverty.
Right.
Now will be sustained in the second quarter, and that, I think, Regina, will answer your question. If that worsens, then you can expect that the presence numbers will also decline.
Well, we look forward to getting these reports, and I hope you release them to us first, but no pressure. Thank you so much for your time today.
We always release to you guys first.
Okta Research President Professor Ranjit Rai.
Thank you,
so
Prof.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for joining Storycon today. We're over time once again. I apologize. Thanks to Ronald Llamas, our resident political pundit. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I am Regina Lane.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.